Okay, let's talk about engagement surveys. And before we begin, I just want to show you guys my really cool reading glasses. I'm really proud of this. I feel like aging is really cool, and we shouldn't be scared of it. And I can see so much better now that I've finally admitted that I have a problem seeing at night. Also, I look like Harry Carey or Mel Robbins. Either one will do. If you don't know who Harry Carey is, just Google it and tell me if you agree in the comments. Okay, let's talk about engagement surveys. I had to address it before we began. So, listen, this is going to be a quick pep talk. Engagement surveys are your Super Bowl. This is the answers to the disengagement tests. You're going to find out why. You're going to be able to know why are people disengaged. It's going to end all the laying awake at night wondering what's wrong with you and what it's going to take and why you feel so anxious sometimes and like something so often you don't know what. It's the defining moments of your people or HR or comms or whatever of the million job titles under this purview of the business, part of the business. This is defining, like, Rosie, my cat. Anyway, these are the defining moments of your career. And when you lean into them, like lean into the suck, like the only way out is through. These are things I say to myself when my own life gets hard. You have to get great at this, and it's not as hard as you think. And once you switch your mindset, which I'm about to show you, you're going to see it's not that scary. But no wonder it's so scary. I mean, exciting, right? And that's the first thing, is to switch your mindset from like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. Oh my God, what's about to happen, to this is so exciting, because you're going to figure out exactly what's up with your people. And you can't do your job unless you have those answers, right? So keep your mindset positive when you're getting ready to deploy something like this. And I'm going to give you some hacks here to consider that you probably haven't before. So let's jump into some other quick best practices before you just send a survey. Or let's talk about the pros and cons. Great. So engagement surveys tell you exactly what's wrong in the employee's own words. Remember, ENPS was like, you're going to know that something's not right, and you need that kind of data too. But this is going to tell you a lot of qualitative data. ENPS is your quantitative. This is quantitative and qualitative. It can become your HR roadmap, because you're going to hear overall from everyone what's wrong. And it can help you get more budget, which I'll also teach you how to do. But the cons of engagement surveys is it can be very comprehensive, and it can blow your hair back, especially if you don't know what questions to ask. And a lot of mistakes I see are people make up their own questions, and we're going to talk about how to avoid that and what questions you should ask. And also, employees are super skittish, and participation can be tricky, because in my experience, surveys get sent out and nothing happens with our feedback, or we're super honest in the survey and we get like a recognition program, which is something we said we wanted, but it wasn't like the most urgent need that we needed you to fix. I'll teach you how to avoid that too. And personally, I've seen people take surveys and then get fired. So just remember, they always have to be anonymous. The best way to do this is anonymous. You'll get the most honest answers and not like fake rosy feedback, because people are scared, rose-colored glasses, like, yeah, everything's fine. And then they quit. That's super frustrating and not what you want. So it can be tricky to get employees to take your surveys, but I'm going to give you a script to teach you exactly what to say. Before you send a survey at all, any survey, but really this survey, because it's the big kahuna, you need to get everyone's buy-in. So you're going to get really good at explaining what you're doing and what's in it for the person you're talking to. So think of your workforce in 3 buckets. You've got your employees, your managers, and your executives, okay? So for employees, when you're talking about the engagement survey, you're going to tell them it's their chance to be honest and help shape a better workplace, a chance to voice what needs improvement, a chance to get more support so they can do their best work. Tell them the why in terms of what they care about, so that they're more likely to trust you and believe the process. For managers, you want to talk about, hey, this is going to give you super clear insights into what's blocking your team from performing better. A more productive team is on the other side of this. We're going to have data to address team needs because it's not your fault, manager. We don't always know, and you don't always know, manager, what your people need because you're busy too. This benefits you because it's going to improve productivity and it's going to build trust and stronger team dynamics so that your team just jives better together. Who doesn't want that? And your executives, God love the executives. They're sometimes the hardest ones to benefit the most. But you tell them, they're the first ones to be like, don't send a survey. We don't want to know how bad it is. It's like, okay, goofball. This is going to align the employee experience with business goals because who's driving the revenue? The employees. And the revenue that you're trying to chase and the metrics that you're trying to hit, and you're not hitting them and you can't figure out why. Hey, Rosie, can you stop, buddy? Rosie! Guys, sometimes my cats just make appearances, but they're off camera. Rosie, buddy, no offense. You're interfering with mommy's career right now. Stop. Take a nap. The cats don't do anything all day, I swear, until I start working. Also for the executives, we're on bullet number 2. This will drive retention because employees, if they don't feel listened to, they'll leave. I showed you data on that in the past. But when you have better retention from asking employees, what do you need? How can we help? That leads to more revenue. And then you just get these super unfiltered insights that help drive smarter decisions. You're going to hear in employees' own words what gets in the way of working with customers, what gets in the way of getting their work done faster. And that helps you all in the boardroom, in the executive conference room table, when everyone's like, oh, what should we do? Let's fire everyone and return to office, or let's just open more locations and go faster. It's like, no, that's not what works. That's not what everyone needs. That's not what's going to get us to the goals that you guys want to achieve. So don't just tell everyone, I'm sending a survey, take it because that's what I want. That's easy to understand why you would convey it that way, because you're asking everyone to do something you kind of don't even really want them to take it because you don't want to know, because you're the one that's going to deal with all the negative feedback. But we're going to get your mindset super positive and get you to remember in the moments that matter when you're talking about this survey to anyone other than your own team of HR, people ops, what have you. You got to stop and think, who am I talking to? What do they care about? How are they going to help drive participation, whether it's a manager getting their team, talking about it in one-on-ones. You got to figure out who you're talking to. That's how you tap into your power of influence. So here's an example of how you would launch this at maybe the all hands or your next all company meeting or in a company email. You would tell employees the why. Here's a literal example. I'll include it in the downloadable resource, but you tell them we're rolling out this engagement survey, not just to hear what's going well, but to get your honest feedback on what we can do better. Put it on the company. You have to, because it's the company traumatizing them. Remember? Employees are just a mirror to how the company makes them feel. We expect some tough feedback, and that's what we're asking for. So we need to understand what's standing in the way of doing your best work. You tell them your responses are anonymous, so please don't be rude, but please don't hold back. Sometimes you need to say the please don't be rude, because employees will get spicy and attack people's character, and that's not the point. This is your chance to help us see what needs fixing, and we're ready to listen and take action. I worked for one company who really got this right, and I was like, okay. And I was super honest in the survey, but it was productive. It was like, here's my ideas. Here's what I think could be better. Here's why this doesn't work. And I was so excited to hit send on that survey because I felt like they got it. But at most companies, it's like, here's a survey. And then you tell them over and over again, take the survey, take the survey. Why haven't you taken the survey? And then employees are like, ugh, leave me alone. Don't you know it's really bad? It's pretty bad out there. That's why we're not taking it. So this is an easy script for you to tell employees the why. And if any executive is like, don't put it on the company, you got to figure out what they care about. They're afraid of failure. You tell them no company's perfect and the global workforce is disengaged. This is the key in the path to more revenue. The answers in the engagement survey, the opposite of that is an engaged workforce. So tell them this is how we get to growth. This is how we get on track. This is exciting. Come on, slides. Okay, so here's another hack I want you to remember. When you send a survey, I want you to imagine you're directing the movie of your company. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you're a character in the movie, okay? Like an actor in the film. Because when you send this survey, you're going to get a bunch of negative feedback. Do you like working here? No! Sure don't. But you're not in the movie. So remember not to take it personally. This is the number one thing I coach HR leaders on. They're like, we just sent this survey out. It's so bad. Christy, it's so bad. I'm like, I know. Congratulations. This is so exciting. You have a workforce that's talking to you. They trust that you're going to do something with the feedback. And also, if you think of your company as like a movie, you need this very critical scene. You should be thinking, yes, I needed this to do my job. How else was I going to drive engagement? That was a great scene. Cut. Just like Batman, the movie, has scenes where the whole city's being blown up and people are being taken captive and people are screaming and running through the streets. Imagine you're the director going, we need this scene in order to tell the story, in order to get to the end. So when you get survey results that are like screaming bloody murder, it's not a personal attack on you. Remember, managers cause 70% of it. Employees, when I was an employee, I was never thinking, I hope this HR person gets a piece of my mind. And I would lay awake in bed at night just fuming about the HR leader. I was never thinking about them. The one time I did think about them was like, oh, thank God the HR leader's asking us what's going on because it's really bad out here and I have things to say. So we actually think really positive of you. And it's kind of like a love language between you and your employees. We are trusting you. We're like, thank you. You're like the good parent or the good cop, bad cop. We're like, oh, how much time do you have? Please help. So don't make the mistake of falling down a doom spiral, wondering why you suck at your job and what's wrong with you and how could you let this happen? It's bound to happen. It's inevitable. It's like the bane of existence of every company is like, it's not great, but the great companies spend time figuring out how to make it better. And you can't do that without talking to your workforce. If you were to try to fix daily life at your company by guessing and not sending surveys, you're going to fix the wrong stuff and your employees are going to be like, what are you doing? You need this scene in your movie to know exactly what to work on. That's what I mean when I say this becomes your roadmap, because I'm about to get into the questions to ask, but I just want to make sure I'm using the right microphone. I think I am. Oh God. Oh, I hope the audio quality is good on this one. Okay. You need all that information, all the information you're going to get from the employees. It's going to feel like a lot, but I'll show you how to get clear on how to categorize it. And you basically can write your HR roadmap of what you're going to focus on when you do have time to work on the business. You know, we've talked about run the business versus change the business. When you have that time to do change the business type work, you know exactly what to work on. You're not wondering, you're not guessing. Okay, does that make sense? We are not personally attacking you and we are not mad at you. We are so excited that you're asking us. Now, when it comes to sending the actual survey and getting the questions all geared up, this is the second most common mistake I see. Do not make up your own engagement survey questions. I guarantee you may go insane. A lot of what I do is helping companies untangle what they've done after they've sent. If this has happened to you, don't feel bad. That's why I'm creating this training, because somehow, some way, there's no training that teaches you what questions to ask. But when you make up the questions, because you're likely not a psychologist and you're not like a bleeding edge engagement expert and have been reading Gallup every day since you started your career, what happens to the employees, and I've lived this, the questions become redundant and confusing and we tend to drop off and we start to overthink our answer because you can ask us the same thing in different ways. And we're like, we kind of answered that, but was that what they meant? And then our participation drops off and we're kind of like, what is this survey? I don't have time. I have work to do. So never send a survey that's got like 50 questions. That's way too many. There's only 12 you really should be asking. I'll show you in a second. But what happens for you when you do this is you're going to be completely overwhelmed. You're going to get confused yourself because there was no strategy about what you were asking. And you word things in a little bit of a backwards way on accident. I've seen it time and time again. I see the questions asked and I'm like, what? I don't even work here, but I went to college and I've like been a basic normal adult and I don't know what this question is asking. You're using a bunch of buzzwords. You're saying this in a really confusing way. And what happens is, to you, things are going to look a lot worse than they are, because you're going to wonder why participation is struggling, and people are going to be trying to answer your questions, but they're kind of like all over the place, and they're not really giving you the full picture of your entire employee experience. So this is what I do on the side of this community. If you've already sent a survey and you need help untangling the results, please reach out to me, because this is like my favorite puzzle to solve, and it's actually a lot quicker than you think for me to just jump in and get you reorganized, resituated, and tell you what employees are actually saying. So don't panic if this has ever happened, and in the future, if it ever happens, just reach out to me. So Gallup is the industry best standard organization that has researched employee engagement for almost 5 decades. So that's why I say, don't make up your questions. They've kind of already figured it out. And they've whittled it down to what's called the Q12. And you can use these, because this is basically the most well-known banana bread recipe on recipes.com. It's not illegal for you to use these. This is very, very best practice information that's all over the internet. So sometimes people ask me am I allowed to use these? Yes, this is your basics. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other metaphors, but they're not coming. But these questions are research backed, and the most efficient way across only 12 questions to learn the most about your unique employee experience and where it's breaking down. So we're going to go through these quickly. Number 1, I know what's expected of me at work. 2, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. 3, at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. 4, in the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. 5, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. 6, there's someone at work who encourages my development. Do you see how this can be applied to frontline or tech, industries, and everything in between? These are very, very all-encompassing questions that would apply to any company. 7, at work, my opinion seems to count. 8, the mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. 9, my associates or fellow employees are committed to doing quality work. 10, I have a best friend at work. Pause. Sometimes people hate this question, and they're like, a best friend? Why would you need a best friend? I wish this just said, I have a friend at work. But what this is actually gauging is, I have someone who I can feel psychologically safe to say, oh, that was weird. Did you think that was weird? Oh, I hate this process. Or oh, I'm not feeling it today. Someone to talk to, someone that they're connecting with. And I just gave a bunch of negative examples, but it could be hey, I'm having a baby. Hey, I got engaged. And having someone who's oh my God, outside of the actual role, someone is connecting with you, and you feel like you're a human having a human experience with someone else at this company. 11, in the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. And 12, this last year, I've had opportunities to learn and grow. Okay? Those are your questions. Simple as that. These map perfectly to what's called the employee hierarchy of needs. Just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs from high school, it's you need to have food and water and shelter in order to survive. Then you need friendships, connection, and the basics of human connection. Then it's then you can worry about being your highest self or learning new skills. So you can't be a pop star on a stage in front of the whole world if you're if you have no clothes on and no shoes. Things have to happen for you in order for you to show up a certain way in life. And it's the same thing at work. Those same questions. I know what's expected of me at work. I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. It all shows you where the priority should be focused. Sorry if you can hear that car that drove by. So when you get, when you send these questions, it's a common mistake for people to see, no one's told me good job, or like, I need an opportunity to learn. No, I don't have opportunities to learn and grow. And you can accidentally ship career pathing or something like that at your company. But really, your employees are stuck on the bottom rung of, I know what's expected of me at work. No one cares about a path to grow if they don't know what's expected of them, because they don't really see themselves working at the company for very long. So I know what's expected of me at work is like a goals issue, a management issue, a job description issue, a like time management and how is the work getting delegated on the team issue. So this is why sometimes you ship employee initiatives and they don't work, because yes, we said we wanted it, but we're not ready for it. And you have to be paying really close attention with your scoring, which is what I'm about to show you, to figure out where to focus on. So when you're sending this when you're sending your engagement survey out, you're going to want to ask the right way. It's best practice to send a 5-point Likert scale. I don't know who Likert is. I don't know if that's someone's last name. I just realized how much that bothers me that I've said Likert so many times, but it's just called a Likert scale to get your consistent responses all the way across. So again, don't make this up. This has already been researched. Give everyone a strongly disagree to a disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. And this is how you would score them. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Super simple. Remember, one of those questions was, I know what's expected of me at work. So this is an example of how you would do each question. And this is just one of the questions. So to calculate your score, after you have laid out all the questions that way and you told everyone what's in it for them, you sent it out, everyone took it, yay, we got 80% participation, that's great. Let's say, it's time to score and you have 100 employees. For one of those questions, we'll say for this question, they answered like this. 20 employees said strongly disagree, which was 1 point. 15 employees chose 2, disagree. 25 employees chose neutral, 30 employees chose agree, and 10 employees chose strongly agree. So all you do is multiply each response by the number of employees who chose it. So 20 times 1, 15 times 2, okay? And so on. So in this example, we get a total of 295 for this one question. We're scoring one question right here. Then you need to find your average of the score. So in this example, because it's 100 employees, it's pretty easy, but you just divide the total score by the total number of responses, which was 100 employees, and you get 2.95. So it's going to be on a scale of 1 to 5. Each question will have a ranking of where it scored 1 to 5. Oops. So 2.95 is close to neutral, which is a 3. But it's leaning more towards disagree. So it's definitely something where people are unclear about their job expectations and daily life. And it could be a sign of confusion or poor communication. So something to consider looking into, but just stay with me because that was just one question. If you want to take a screenshot of this, it will also be in the cheat sheet. But this is how you interpret the Likert scale again. Something that's, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read it, but you've got 1, disagree, major issues, all the way to strongly agree, high engagement, and you should celebrate what's working. But, so going back to scoring, I know it's expected of me at work. There are, what was the question we asked? Okay, so in the example, we scored a 2.95, but then I think here I kind of like randomized what could have happened. So this was supposed to say 2.95, but it's fine. Could be just to 1 decimal point. But let's say then you did that process for all of your questions. It's only 12 questions, okay? See how much easier this is than just like making up the questions and figuring out where there's bleed over? So let's say you found the average for your whole workforce for all the questions. Then you want your total engagement score. So you come up with your total of all the average scores. So you would add all these up in parentheses here. And then you divide it by 12. Your overall engagement score is 3.85, which indicates positive engagement. So that's like in here. But there are some areas that need attention, which is pretty normal. I'll link out to some benchmarking for you so that you can see by industry where you stand. But that is how, I don't know who's like driving through my neighborhood so fast. I live in the suburbs. Someone's like drag racing outside. How rude. This is how you get your overall engagement score. And this is the data that you will be bringing to the executive team when they're in meetings and they're like, oh, let's hire a bunch of people. You can say, hold on, ENPS is trending down quarter after quarter. And so is our engagement survey year after year. So we need to think about the future here, because I want you to open a bunch of locations too and scale and go fast. I love that for you. But like the data on my end is showing us, it's forecasting a lot of turnover. So this is how you're going to start to have your own data that you're bringing to the discussion and to the table. So the biggest takeaway of engagement surveys are that they're supposed to drum up a bunch of negative feedback, and it's a good thing. And I hate that I didn't change the question here because, sorry y'all, I'm a single mom and I'm trying my best. But the question was supposed to be, have you ever sent out an engagement survey, and has it been a tangled hot mess of angry feedback? And have you ever, did you go through accidentally that death spiral of what's wrong with me? Ignore what this says. I'm so sorry I didn't change the question. I'm working on perfectionism too, so I'm going to leave this in. This is Christy growing here too. The old me would have recorded this whole thing all over again, and I don't have another 30 minutes to do it again. But that's what I want to know is, have you ever had like an engagement survey shitstorm, if you will, where stuff got drummed up and you kind of weren't equipped, or you panicked, and it's not your fault. You haven't had any training. You haven't had any support from the executives. You haven't known how to explain it. You haven't known what questions to ask. But for everyone in this community, I think what really benefits everyone is to say, yeah, you're not crazy. It's happened to me too. And that power of vulnerability is what helps us all learn from each other, and to know, no matter where you are in your career, that it's happened to someone else who's also a great person, and there's nothing wrong with you. So I'm not expecting you to say that happened. Maybe you're like, no, this has never happened to me. But this is a very unclear part of driving engagement that I'm happy to just like quickly clear up for you, give you the basics. And I want you to check out the cheat sheet below. I will link it out in, I was going to say the show notes. This isn't the podcast, in the little description area of this lesson. So, okay. Love you guys. Now you have a great understanding of engagement surveys. We're going on to pulse and manager surveys next.